Wisdom, wisdom, that's the test. Which rival wisdom team is best? Quote definitions and synergies defined by Claude AI, coordinated by Grandpa Lou Valier. Take care and enjoy.
Team 37. Cultivate patiently. Quote definitions, biographical context, and synergy analysis to replace hate with motivationaleducation.com to guidealife.com. Quote 37.1. Success is a consequence and must not be a goal. Gustave Flaubert, 1821 to 1880. Quote definition. Success, recognition, achievement, measurable outcomes arrives as a natural consequence of doing genuinely excellent work for the right reasons. When pursued as a primary goal, it distorts the work. The person chasing success produces what success rewards rather than what genuine quality requires, and often achieves neither quality nor the enduring success that quality would have produced. Quote application. The mission of making America wiser and kinder must treat genuine wisdom impact as the goal and success reach recognition growth as its eventual consequence. The content calibrated to maximize measurable success rather than genuine wisdom transmission produces less of both. Flaubert's principle is a standing check. Is this being done for the right reason, or has the consequence become the goal? Gustave Flaubert was born in 1821 in Rouen, Normandy, the son of a surgeon, and became the most technically meticulous novelist of the 19th century. The writer whose single-minded pursuit of le mot just the exact right word made Madame Bovary, 1857, and Sentimental Education, 1869, among the most carefully constructed novels ever written. He spent 5 years on Madame Bovary, sometimes writing a single page per week in pursuit of perfect expression, and described his method as art for art's sake rather than art for applause or sales. He never married, rarely left Normandy, and subordinated everything to the work itself, not the success the work might produce. His observation about success as consequence rather than goal was his personal operating principle, practiced across a career of extraordinary technical obsession and relatively modest contemporary recognition. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Subordinate the measurable success metrics to the genuine quality of the work, because excellence pursued for its own sake produces a success that direct pursuit of success tends to distort. 2. Apply this as a regular self-check. When a decision about content, approach, or strategy is being made, is it oriented toward genuine quality or toward what success metrics reward? 3. Trust that genuine wisdom work, done patiently and excellently for the right reasons, will eventually produce a success that arrives as its natural consequence rather than its manufactured goal.
Quote 37.2. Advertising is the very essence of democracy. Anton Chekhov, 1860 to 1904. Quote definition. In a democratic society, the ability to speak publicly, to make one's case, to announce what one has to offer, to invite others to engage, is not a commercial tool but the practical expression of democratic participation. Every person, organization, or idea that can announce itself honestly to others is exercising the democratic capacity to be heard. Advertising, understood in this broad sense, is how democratic voices become audible. Quote application. For the mission of making America wiser and kinder, Chekhov's democratic framing of advertising is the authorization to share the mission's message broadly and without apology. The wisdom in these 52 teams deserves to be heard. Making it heard, through every available channel with every effective tool, is not commercial opportunism but the democratic exercise of the right to speak for what matters. The mission advertises because democracy requires it. Anton Pavlovich Chekhov was born in 1860 in Taganrog, Russia, the grandson of a serf who had purchased his own freedom, and became the most influential short story writer and playwright of the late 19th century. His uncle Vanya, The Three Sisters, The Cherry Orchard, and dozens of short stories redefined what literary realism could achieve. He worked simultaneously as a physician throughout his career, providing free medical care to peasants near his estate at Melikovo, and died of tuberculosis at 44. His observation about advertising and democracy is characteristic of his broader social vision. He saw the practical mechanisms of communication and commerce as connected to the deeper questions of human dignity and democratic participation, and he drew the connection with his characteristic compression and non-obvious insight. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Reframe the sharing and promotion of genuine wisdom as a democratic exercise rather than a commercial one, making the mission's voice audible as participating in democracy, not selling a product. 2. Apply this authorization broadly. Every channel through which the mission's wisdom reaches people who need it is democratic speech, and democratic speech is always worth exercising. 3. Use Chekhov's framing to overcome the hesitation about sharing and promoting wisdom content. This is not self-promotion but the democratic expression of what the mission genuinely believes and genuinely offers.
Quote 37.3. Travel teaches toleration. Benjamin Disraeli, 1804–1881. Quote definition. The direct, genuine encounter with people who live differently, think differently, and organize their lives differently from what one has known at home is the most effective available teacher of genuine tolerance. Not because it produces agreement with every difference encountered, but because it reveals the full humanity of people whose humanity abstract distance had made easy to dismiss or dehumanize. Quote application. The wisdom education in these 52 teams is a form of travel across time, across cultures, across the full range of human experience that 2,500 years of genuine thought represents. Every encounter with a genuinely different perspective, a genuinely different life, a genuinely different way of understanding what it means to be human is the travel that Disraeli describes, and it teaches toleration in exactly the way he identifies, by making the humanity of difference undeniable through genuine encounter. Benjamin Disraeli was born in 1804 in London, the son of Isaac Disraeli, a literary scholar of Italian Jewish heritage, and was baptized into the Anglican Church at 12. He became one of the most improbable political careers in British history. A Jewish-born novelist who became conservative prime minister twice, championed working-class reform, acquired the Suez Canal, made Queen Victoria Empress of India, and was the dominant figure of Victorian Tory politics. He appears in Team 11 as well, where his observation about passion and greatness anchored that team. His observation about travel teaching toleration came from a man who had traveled extensively in his youth, through Gibraltar, Malta, Albania, Greece, Turkey, Egypt, and the Holy Land, and who attributed his ability to understand and work across the enormous differences of Victorian society partly to the direct human encounters that travel had provided. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Seek genuine encounters with difference in travel, in literature, in human relationship, as the most effective available teacher of the genuine toleration that abstract argument rarely produces. 2. Recognize that the wisdom education these 52 teams provide is itself a form of the travel Disraeli describes, a journey across 2,500 years of human difference that teaches toleration through genuine encounter. 3. Apply this to community building. Create genuine encounters across difference rather than merely advocating for tolerance in the abstract, because the encounter is what actually teaches it.
Quote 37.4. The trees that are slow to grow bear the best fruit. Molière 1622–1673. Quote definition. The most valuable outcomes, in fruit, in character, in wisdom, in community, are those that develop slowly, through processes that cannot be rushed without damaging the quality of what they produce. The slow growth is not a failure of development, but the condition of the depth, the complexity, and the genuine quality that rapid growth never produces. Quote application. The patient cultivation that Team 37 describes is Molière's principle in action. The communities that become genuinely wiser and kinder do so slowly, through processes of genuine encounter and gradual thinking change that cannot be accelerated without losing what makes them genuinely transformative. The slow-growing tree bears the best fruit, and the mission plants trees rather than forcing fruit. Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, Molière, was born in 1622 in Paris, the son of a court upholsterer, abandoned a legal career to found a theatrical troupe, spent 13 years touring the French provinces in difficult conditions before returning to Paris in 1658 and gaining royal patronage, and produced in the following 15 years the greatest comedies in the French language. Tartuffe, the misanthrope; The Miser, the bourgeois gentleman; The Imaginary Invalid. He died on stage in 1673 while performing The Imaginary Invalid, suffering a hemorrhage during the fourth performance, refusing to cancel the show, which would have cost the other actors their wages, and dying hours later. His observation about slow-growing trees bearing best fruit reflects a man who had spent 13 years in provincial difficulty before his greatest work was possible, and who understood from that experience that the slow, difficult development was not wasted time, but the growing season of everything that followed. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Resist the pressure to accelerate what requires patience. The slow growth is the condition of the best fruit, and forcing it produces the rapid but inferior variety. 2. Reframe slow, visible progress as the growing season of deep quality rather than as failure of a different kind. The slow tree is not behind, it is developing. 3. Apply Moliere's patience to the mission. The communities being cultivated toward genuine wisdom and kindness are slow-growing trees, and the patience that allows them to grow at their natural pace is the condition of the best possible fruit.
Quote 37.5. Ability will never catch up with the demand for it. Confucius 551 to 479 BC. Quote definition. Genuine capability, real wisdom, real skill, real moral development is always in shorter supply than the situations that require it. The world's demand for genuine ability consistently exceeds the available supply, which means that the person who genuinely develops real capability will always find it needed and valued. Genuine ability is never obsolete. The demand for it perpetually exceeds what exists. Quote application. The patient cultivation of genuine wisdom and genuine capability is always worthwhile, because demand will always exceed supply. For the mission, this is both encouragement and direction. Develop genuinely, because genuine ability will always be needed more than it is available. Every person who genuinely becomes wiser and kinder adds to a supply that will never catch up to the world's demand for it. Confucius appears in Teams 7, 34, and 37. His observations about preparation, resilience, and the permanent demand for genuine ability anchor multiple frameworks. Here his most directly encouraging observation, for the patient cultivator, takes the stage. Born in 551 BC in the state of Lu, and spending much of his career seeking rulers, willing to implement his vision of ethical governance, and largely failing to find them, Confucius nevertheless produced the most enduring educational tradition in human history, one that shaped the governance and culture of China and much of East Asia for over 2,000 years. His observation that ability will never catch up with demand was both a comfort to his students. Genuine development is always worthwhile, always needed, and an honest assessment of human societies. The supply of genuine wisdom and genuine capability perpetually lags what the world requires of them. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Invest in genuine capability development without anxiety about whether it will be needed. It always will be, because demand perpetually exceeds supply. 2. Recognize this as the standing authorization for patient cultivation. The slow development of genuine wisdom, genuine skill, and genuine moral capability is always an investment in something the world genuinely needs more of. 3. Apply Confucius's permanent demand to the mission. Every person genuinely made wiser and kinder adds to a supply that will always be needed more than it exists. The cultivation is always worthwhile.
Quote 37.6. I think, therefore I am. René Descartes, 1596 to 1650. Quote definition. The single indubitable fact from which all genuine knowledge must be built is the existence of the thinking self. The one thing that cannot be doubted, because the very act of doubting requires a doubter who exists. Descartes' cogito is the irreducible starting point of all genuine inquiry. The recognition that the thinking self is real, and that genuine knowledge must be built outward from that foundation. Quote application. Patient cultivation begins with the thinking self, the person genuinely engaging with ideas, genuinely questioning assumptions, genuinely working through what is true and what is good. Descartes' cogito is the foundation that patient cultivation rests on. The genuine thinking person who exists, who can know, who can be wiser than they currently are. The cultivation of wisdom begins exactly here. I think, therefore I am capable of wisdom. René Descartes was born in 1596 in La Haye en Touraine, France, educated at the Jesuit college Royal Henry Le Grand, and became the founding figure of modern Western philosophy. The person who established the method of systematic doubt as the path to certain knowledge, and who formulated the mind-body problem that continues to preoccupy philosophy and neuroscience. He spent most of his adult life in the Netherlands, where intellectual freedom was greater than in France, and produced the Discourse on the Method, 1637, Meditations on First Philosophy, 1641, and Principles of Philosophy, 1644. Works that established a new starting point for Western thought. His cogito, I think therefore I am, is the most famous sentence in the history of philosophy, the one indubitable foundation from which, having stripped away everything that could be doubted, he rebuilt the edifice of knowledge. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Ground all patient cultivation in the irreducible reality of the thinking self, the foundation that makes all genuine wisdom development possible. 2. Apply the Cartesian method of starting from what is certain and building outward as the model for genuine patient inquiry. Begin with what cannot be doubted and cultivate genuine knowledge from that foundation. 3. Use Descartes' cogito as the standing affirmation for everyone the mission serves. You think, therefore you are. And because you are, and because you think, you can become genuinely wiser.
Quote 37.7. After all is said and done, more is said than done. Aesop 621 to 564 BC. Quote definition. The persistent universal imbalance between talk and action, between what people say they will do and what they actually do, is both an observation about human nature and a standing challenge to anyone who means to be different. More is always said than done. The question is whether the individual will be one of those who does rather than merely one of those who says. Quote application. Patient cultivation requires the discipline of doing rather than talking about doing, the actual planting, watering, and tending that produces fruit versus the discussion of what a beautiful garden would look like. Aesop's observation is the standing challenge to the mission and to everyone it serves. After all is said about making America wiser and kinder, is it actually being done? The doing is always scarcer than the saying. Aesop appears in Team 29 as well, where his principle about persuasion over force anchored the method layer of that team. Here his most direct observation about the universal gap between word and deed takes the stage. The fabulist whose 2,600-year-old stories have remained in continuous circulation because they reliably capture truths that humans persistently prefer to avoid confronting directly, including this one. His tales are full of characters who say they will do things and then don't, characters who mean well but act otherwise, and characters who understand principles that their behavior systematically violates. He understood the gap between said and done from his own position as a slave in ancient Greece, a man for whom the gap between the stated principles of a free society and its actual treatment of enslaved people was not an abstract observation, but a lived daily reality. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Apply the said-done ratio honestly to personal behavior. In the areas that matter most to the mission and to genuine wisdom, how much is said relative to how much is actually done? 2. Use Aesop's observation as the standing check against the comfortable substitution of articulate commitment for actual engagement. Saying the right things is not the same as doing them. 3. Commit to being in the minority that actually does rather than the majority that says, and apply that commitment specifically to the patient cultivation that the mission requires.
Quote 37.8. Where there are friends there is wealth. Titus Maxius Plautus 254 to 185 BC. Quote definition. The wealth that genuine friendship provides, the security, the joy, the resource of mutual support, the enrichment of being genuinely known and genuinely cared for, is a form of abundance that money cannot purchase and that its absence makes money insufficient to replace. Where genuine friendship exists, genuine wealth exists regardless of material circumstances. Where it is absent, material wealth leaves the most important poverty unaddressed. Quote application. The patient cultivation of genuine community, the slow building of the genuine friendships that Team 37 describes as wealth, is the mission's highest value work. Every genuine relationship built, every genuine friendship formed, every community member who discovers in this mission's circle the wealth that only genuine connection provides, this is the cultivation whose fruit Molière names as the best, grown slowly, incomparably rich. Titus Maxius Plautus was born around 254 BC in Sarzina, Umbria, and became the most popular playwright of the Roman Republic. His 20 surviving comedies are the oldest complete works of Latin literature and have remained in performance across 22 centuries. He appears in Team 34 as well, where his wry preference for compliments over criticism provided the honest self-awareness that persistent improvement requires. Here his warmest observation closes Team 37 with the human richness that patient cultivation ultimately produces. Born into modest circumstances and having spent time doing manual labor before finding his calling as a playwright, Plautus understood the wealth of genuine human connection from a position of personal experience. He had been poor in the material sense and rich in the human sense, and he had drawn the obvious conclusion about which form of wealth was more genuinely enriching. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Recognize and invest in genuine friendship as the form of wealth that most enriches life and that money cannot substitute. The cultivation of genuine human connection is investment in the most valuable available asset. 2. Apply this to the mission's community building. Every genuine friendship formed within the community the mission creates is wealth accumulated, not metaphorically but actually, in the form of the mutual support, genuine care, and human richness that only real connection provides. 3. Close the patient cultivation framework with Plautus's warmth. Where the mission has cultivated genuine friendship, genuine wealth exists, and the patient work of building that wealth is among the most important things the mission does.
How they work together as a unified philosophy to replace hate with motivational education to guidealife.com. The Cultivate Patiently framework. Orientation layer. Success as consequence and voice as democracy. Quotes 1, 2. Flaubert, establish the right relationship between work and outcome, success as consequence rather than goal, ensuring that patient cultivation is oriented toward genuine quality rather than the measurable metrics that direct pursuit of success produces. Chekhov, provide the democratic authorization for sharing what the patient cultivation produces, advertising as the essence of democracy, removing the hesitation about making wisdom heard broadly and without apology. Together, the orientation and the authorization of patient cultivation. Flaubert ensures the cultivation is aimed at the right thing, genuine quality, with success arriving as its natural consequence. Chekhov ensures that what the cultivation produces is shared without apology, because making genuine wisdom audible is democratic participation, not commercial self-promotion. Growth layer, travel teaching toleration and slow trees bearing best fruit, quotes 3, 4. Disraeli, establish genuine encounter with difference as the most effective teacher of toleration, the travel that makes the humanity of difference undeniable through direct experience. Molière, provide the patience principle that genuine cultivation requires. Slow-growing trees bear the best fruit, ensuring that the cultivation of wisdom and community is not rushed in ways that damage the quality of what it produces. Together, the method and the pace of patient cultivation. Disraeli's travel across difference, across cultures, across the full range of human experience is the mechanism of genuine tolerance produced by genuine encounter rather than abstract advocacy. Molière's slow tree is the pace at which that tolerance genuinely develops, the pace of the best fruit which cannot be rushed without becoming something less than the best. Foundation layer, permanent demand for ability and the thinking self, quotes 5, 6. Confucius, provide the permanent authorization for patient development. Ability will never catch up with demand, ensuring that the cultivation of genuine capability is always worthwhile because it is always needed more than it exists. Descartes, ground the entire cultivation in the irreducible foundation. I think, therefore, I am the indubitable starting point from which all genuine knowledge and genuine wisdom development must proceed. Together, the motivation and the foundation of patient cultivation. Confucius ensures that the patient development of genuine ability is always a worthwhile investment. The demand permanently exceeds the supply. Descartes provides the irreducible foundation that makes the development possible, the thinking self, which exists and can know and can therefore become wiser. Cultivate patiently, because the demand is permanent. Begin with the thinking self, because that is where all genuine knowledge starts. Action layer, doing over saying and friendship as wealth, quotes 7, 8. Aesop, apply the standing challenge to the patient cultivator. After all is said and done, more is said than done, ensuring that patient cultivation is actual cultivation rather than patient discussion of cultivation. Plautus, close the framework with the wealth that patient cultivation ultimately produces. Where there are friends, there is wealth, naming the genuine richness of genuine community as the fruit that the slow-growing trees of patient cultivation eventually bear. Together, the discipline and the reward of patient cultivation. Aesop's challenge ensures that the patience is applied to actual doing rather than comfortable talking about doing. More is always said than done, and patient cultivation must be in the minority that actually does. Plautus's wealth is what the doing produces: genuine friendship, genuine community, the richness that only real human connection provides. Do the patient work, arrive at the wealth that only genuine cultivation produces.
Free easy extra advantage math, spelling and reading workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free easy math wisdom workbooks with octo repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free easy alpha cipher-coded puzzles teach letters, numbers, and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this cipher quote of encouragement using either our learning to spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms that have passed the test of time to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling, and reading practice. And, if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms. Like pretty witty baby onesies and baby tees that you and others will see and read multiple times a day. The same is true with pretty witty kids, but they'll also share these wisdoms with anyone that can read at daycare or school. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. Therefore I think Tees I Wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom that have passed the test of time. Our social equalities help make us all wiser and kinder with blatantly subliminal messages promoting a more fair and equal opportunity society for all. And don't forget our giftwisdoms.com for birthdays and holidays that makes it easy to share the wisdom with clothing, coffee mugs, and magnets. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating, and entertaining with words of wisdom that have passed the test of time to make us all wiser and kinder. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids, and adults. You can clothe a whole family, city, or state. Join the 52 of 8 today.